Hello students, welcome back to my channel. In this video, we would be studying about the different data types of the Python programming language. So before starting with the data types, I would first like to mention that Python is an object-oriented language. And what do we mean by an object-oriented language? It means that every value in Python is considered as an object. That means it is considered as a real-world entity. And each object will have certain attributes and certain functions that can be performed on that object. Okay, so if you do not know any details about any other object-oriented language, you do not need to worry. We will be studying in detail about these concepts in the later chapter also. But since we have started with Python, you must know that you are studying an object-oriented language in which every value is considered to be an object. It will have a particular, every value has a name, certain functions can be performed on that value, and there are certain features can also be associated with that value. We'll be studying in detail. Okay, and the kind of data that the object holds is known as the data type of that object. Okay, so every object is assigned a particular memory location in the Python programming language, and that memory location or the memory address is referred to as the identity of that object, because once an object or a value is created in Python, it will be assigned a unique address, and as long as it remains alive in the program, that unique identity will remain as it is. That means throughout the life of that object, this particular identity will not be changed. Okay, just like you have an ID card when you enter a college or a school, and that remains the same throughout your class, right? So that is why each object has an identity, which is the memory address where that object is located in the memory. Okay, and how can you get that particular object's identity? So if you have an object, say ABC, and you want to get the identity or the memory address where the object is stored, you can call this function called ID, and you can place this particular value or the name of the object within the parenthesis, within the round brackets, and when you execute this particular statement, you will get a kind of a big value, a random number. Actually, it's not a random number, it is a memory address or a location which is some big value which you won't be able to remember as such for all the objects. So this is the memory address where the object is present and located in the memory. Okay, so ID round brackets, this is the function that can be used to retrieve the object's identity. Okay, now starting with the data types of Python. As I said, everything in Python is an object, and an object will have a name, just like we studied in the previous video that identifiers are the names that are given to variables or objects, and each variable will have a value associated with it. So the value will have a certain kind of data. That means the value will belong to a certain kind of data. Either that value will be numeric, or that value will be a character, or it will be alphanumeric. So what kind of data is present in an object, that is the data type of that object. Okay, so what is the purpose of finding the data type of the object? Firstly, we get to know what kind of value is present in that object, and secondly, we also get to know what kind of operations can be performed on that object. That means if you have a number, say 1, and you have another number, say 3, so you know that you can add these two numbers because the data type of both these numbers is integer, or they are numeric values. But if I say I have a value ABC and I have another value, say 2, so can I perform addition on these numbers, on these two values? No. So because I know that the data type of this particular object is not an integer or not any numeric type. Okay, so this is the this is the use of knowing the data types. And how can you know the data type of a particular variable or an object? The Python provides the built-in function, which is the type function. So whichever variables data type you want to know, just put in the name of the variable here and you execute this command and you'll get the result. Okay, so now let's see what kind of data types are present in the Python language. The types of data are mainly divided into numeric data, sequential data, then there are mappings, then there is a data type called none, and sets. Okay, so numeric data is mainly of three types. Either it is integer or it is floating point number like decimals, and the third type is complex numbers that have a real part and an imaginary part. Now we also have a subcategory of integers, which is the Boolean data type. Okay, so this is the numeric data type. The other kind of data that exists in Python is the sequence data type, which consists of strings, lists, and tuples. Okay, I'll just in detail I'll be telling you and showing you what are the differences between sequence data types and numeric data types and other types of data. So the next kind of data are the sets. Then we have a very special data type called none, which denotes the absence of a value. Okay, and the last kind of data is mappings. So we'll be studying in detail about all these, but before that I would like to show an example which is given in your NCERT book with the how to use the type function. Okay, so here we have this is the prompt as we have learned in the previous videos also. So this is a variable which has the name num1, or I can say it has an identifier num1, and it has been assigned a value 10. So now if you want to know what is the data type of this variable, suppose you do not know that it has been assigned the value 10, or you have forgotten what kind of value it now holds. So what you'll do, you'll just use the type function, start the round brackets, then write the name of this variable whose data type you want to know, close the round brackets and hit enter on the Python interpreter. Now this will give you the result. That means this particular variable num1 belongs to the integer class. Okay, so int. And why class? Because every data type is defined as a class in Python. Classes again falls under the concept of object-oriented language, and we will study them in detail as a separate chapter. So do not worry if you and do not get confused about this word class here. It is again a keyword, and I hope you remember what keywords are because we have already studied them. Okay. Now similarly, if you have a negative number, its data type or type will also be an integer. Okay, now coming to the type of Boolean. So I'll be showing you that the Boolean data type has two constant values, true and false, and that is why when you run the type function on it, you get the value bool. Okay, now you have a floating point number, which is again a numeric type, but when you run the type function on this variable float1, you get that this particular variable belongs to the float class. Now if you assign a variable by performing certain calculations, like here you can see that this particular calculation is being performed and the result is being assigned to this particular float value, this particular float variable. Now after this calculation, first the calculation would be completely performed and the result would be assigned to this float2 variable. Now when we print the type of this variable, you'll again get a float, because when you execute this, you'll get a floating point number. Okay, because there is a floating point number in the calculation itself. Okay, now coming to the last example, this particular variable var2 has a complex value, complex data type, and that is why running the type function gives you the data type as complex. Now coming to the separate description of each of the data types, firstly we'll cover the numeric data type. Okay, so we have three types of numeric data, which are the integer denoted by the int class, only int, then is the float, and then the complex number. So these are the names of the classes that you will be returned if you run the type function. Complete names are integer class, floating point class, and complex class. Okay, so what are integer values? Integer values are positive and negative numbers. Floating point values are the numbers that have a decimal point and they have a value to the right and left of the decimal points. Okay, so they are decimal numbers. And complex numbers are the ones that have a real part as well as a imaginary part. So real plus imaginary part, and imaginary part is denoted by iota. Okay, now one thing you must remember about numeric data type is that it is a single valued data type. That means whenever I talk about an int or a float or a complex data type, any variable that belongs to any of these three classes will have a single value. You cannot say that your variable xyz belongs to the int data type, it is of the int data type and it has the value 2 and 3 and 5. No, numeric data types will only contain a single value at a time. And this is why, and this is how they are different from sequence data types. Sequence data types can contain more than one value at a time. Okay. Now, another important point is the Boolean data type. Boolean data type also falls under the numeric data type category. And why is that? See, in the Boolean data type, we have two constant values which are true and false. True and false are the keywords. We have studied about keywords. They are reserved words, and the only values that are present in the Boolean data type are true and false. Okay. Now, true represents any non-zero value, any non-null value, and any non-empty value. That means if I say that variable a has a value 1 or a variable a has a value -2, since both these values are non-zero value, that means the value is not 0. Okay, so both these variables are considered as true variables. Okay, so when we say whether a variable has a true value or not, then if the variable has a non-zero value and a non-empty value, that means the variable contains some kind of value, it is not at all empty, then it is called a true variable. Okay, it is known as true. Otherwise, if any variable, if the name of my variable is z and it contains the value 0, okay, so this variable, though it has a value, but this value is 0. So when I ask the Python interpreter whether this variable is true or false, okay, the Python shell or the Python interpreter will tell me that this is a false variable. I'll in future I'll be telling how you can check whether a statement, whether a variable is true or whether it is false. For now, you just have to remember that the Boolean data type is a numeric data type. And why it is numeric? Because true means any numeric value which is not 0, and false means the numeric value 0. So when you write or when you print the numeric value corresponding to true, it will come out to be the number non-zero, the non-zero number, and false means the 0 value. Okay, and why we say that the Boolean data type has two constants? Because these are the only two values that can be present in this data type. Just like the int data type can have any positive and any negative number, there is no limit to that, but the Boolean type can have only two constant values, two fixed values, true and false. Okay, Now coming to the next kind of data, which is the sequential data. Sequence data type, as I just told you, they can store they can store a single value also, or they can store more than one value. So this is how they are different from the numeric data types, okay? And every sequence data type, that means string, tuples, list, all the sequence data types are ordered collection of items. Okay, so what we'll be decoding these terms one by one. What do we mean by collection of items? By collection of items, I mean that they contain one or more items or one or more values, and ordered. Order means that each and every item in that collection has a particular position assigned to it. Okay, so if I am writing a collection, say 0, 1, -2, -9 and 15, this is a collection of items. Okay, now if I say that it is an ordered collection of items, I mean that the first value will have a certain position associated with it. The second value will have another position associated with it, and these positions help us to access these value in the sequential data type. Okay, so positioning or the indexing, the positions are also known as indexes. These or indices. Indices are integer values that are assigned to all the items of the collection, and these integer indices start from 0 and they proceed in the positive direction. Okay, so the three types of sequence data are strings, list and tuples. First, we would be starting with strings. So strings are the sequence data type which definitely contain one or more values, but what is the type of value it will contain? It will contain either alphabets or digits or spaces or special characters. That means any combination of these four. Okay, any combination of alphabets, digits, spaces or special characters. Any of them can be missing or all of them can also be present, so any combination of these characters. Okay, so strings, whenever you write a string, suppose we have created a variable called str and we have assigned a collection or a group of characters to it. So as you can see here, any string will be enclosed in quotation marks. Either it can be single quotation marks or it can be double quotation marks. Here the string consists only of alphabets. Here the string consists only of digits. But no matter what is the collection of characters that the string holds, it will be contained within quotation marks that can be single quotes or double quotes. These quotation marks are not a part of the string. They are not present in the string. They just tell the Python shell that this is the beginning of the string and this is the end of the string. So the starting quote will tell the Python interpreter that here after this particular character the string value begins and the string value has ended before this last quotation mark. Okay, so one last point that you must remember is, again, strings, though they can contain digits, so just like this particular example in which the string contained the value 452, though a string can contain digits, but numeric operations cannot be performed on it even if it contains all the digits. So even if there are two strings that contain only digits, you cannot perform addition on that. This operation, addition of numbers, is not defined. Plus operator can be used for other purposes in the string, but you cannot perform addition, subtraction, multiplication in such cases also, even when the string contains all the digit or numeric values. Okay, so remember that strings are also ordered sequences. That means if you have a string, say ABC XYZ, this is a string. So each character in this string will have a position associated with it. That position will start from 0. That means the first character will have position 0 and the positions will increase as we go from left to right. Okay, and these positions or indices will help to retrieve each character from the string, and this will be studying in the upcoming videos. Now coming to the second sequential data, which are the list. So list is a sequence of items again, but in this particular sequential data, the items are separated by commas. In the string data type, the collection of characters were not separated by comma, but here, as you can see in the example, we have defined a list with the name list1, and these are the collection of items that are present within a list, and each item is separated from the other with the help of a comma, and the entire collection of items is enclosed within rectangular brackets, and that is how the Python interpreter knows that this particular item is a list. Okay, so the rectangular brackets that you see at the start and at the end of the list tell the Python interpreter that it is the beginning and end of a list. Okay, now each list can contain any kind of value. These value can either be a numeric type, that means int, boolean, float, complex. It can be a sequence in itself, that means this is a string, so it is a sequential data type, or it can also be a list within a list. So there is no restriction on what kind of elements can be present within a list. You just have to put the elements in rectangular brackets and separate them by commas. Okay, so again, if you want to, since list is a sequential data type, each element will be assigned a particular position. That position will begin from 0 and it will go on the positive side. So the first element of the list has index or position 0, the second has index 1, index 2, index 3, index 4. So the length of the list is 5, okay, because it contains 5 elements. But what will be the last index of the list? It will be 4. That means the length minus 1. Okay. So coming to the next data type, which is the tuple. Tuple is again sequence data type. It also contains a collection of elements which are separated by commas, but this time these elements are enclosed within round brackets. Okay. So again, the elements can be of any type. They are ordered sequence. That means each element has a index associated with it, but the entire tuple is enclosed in round brackets. So what is there no other difference between a tuple and a list? The most important difference between a tuple and a list is that the elements of a tuple cannot be changed once a tuple is created. If you try to change the elements of the tuple, you will get an error, or you'll have to create a new tuple with that incorporate all the changes. So if you have declared a tuple, say A, which contains two values 1, 2. Now if you try to change this value, you'll get an error. So what you have to do, you have to create a new tuple with the changes that you want to do, and then that is the only way to go ahead. So you cannot change the values of the tuple once it has been created. However, changing the values of a list is possible. So this is a very important point that you must remember. Again, the data of the elements in the tuple can be of any type: string, int, sequence, mapping, anything. Okay. Now we come to the data type called as set. Now, as you might have studied in maths, a set is a unique collection of elements. Okay. So a set contains multiple elements. Again, each element is separated by comma from other elements. However, a set is enclosed in curly braces and it cannot have duplicate entries in the Python programming language. Okay, so as you can see the example here, we have declared a set called set1, and while defining the set, we have enclosed its elements in curly brackets, and these are the elements. It has 4 elements which are of different data types. Now when we print the type of this variable, that means we print the type of set1, you get that this particular variable belongs to the class set, or it belongs to the data type set. Okay, now if you try to create a variable that has duplicate elements in the set, okay, so in this particular statement, you can see that we are trying to create a set which has duplicate values. Now when you try to, this will not give you an error. Okay, this will not print out any error. This is a completely correct declaration or a statement. This is not an incorrect statement. But when you print out this particular variable, you try to get what is the value stored in that variable, you will see that duplicate elements will automatically be removed by the Python shell. Okay. Okay, now coming to the second last type of data, which is the none type. So as you can understand from the name itself, none means nothing, and nothing means the absence of a value. So whenever you are creating a variable or an object that does not contain any value, but you still want to create a variable which currently does not store a value, or it stored a value, it used to have a value in the past, but now you want to make it empty, but for some reason you want that it must remain in your program. So you can do that, and you can do it using the none data type. So you can create a variable, say xyz, and you can assign it the value none. So this data type has a single value and the value is itself none. Okay, so this is when you create a none variable, you assign it the value none and without quotes. Okay, so it denotes an absence of value. No operation can be performed on this type of variable, on this data type, because it does not have a value. So you cannot perform any operation on this kind of data type. Okay, now when you declare a variable that has a value none, that means it belongs to the data type none, then if you try to find out the type of this variable, you will get that it belongs to the none type class. Okay, all right, coming to the last data type, and an interesting data type in Python language, it is the mapping data type. So what do you understand by mapping? Mapping means you are trying to create a link between two things. You are trying to map one particular thing to another. Just like in a map, you try to find the path from a starting point to an ending point, right? So that is why you are trying to map the way between two particular things. Similarly, the mapping data type, which is known as the dictionary in Python, it relates, or it creates a kind of connection between two values, and these two things are known as the key value pair. Okay, so I might sound a little confusing right now. So a dictionary contains pairs, and each pair has two values. I mean, a pair has two values, and the values are separated by a colon. Okay, the value on the left hand side is known as key, and the value on the right hand side of the colon is known as value. So with each key, a value has been mapped. Okay, and it is a dictionary. That means it is a collection of such pairs. A dictionary will contain multiple key value pairs. Key 1, value 1, then comma, key 2, colon, value 2, key 3, colon, value 3, and so on. Okay, now keys are generally string data type. They are written in the data type string, but value can belong to any data type. Okay, so dictionaries are important because they are used, they are generally used when you want to access or when you want to store a kind of data, store kind of values that will be frequently accessed, and that is why you want that access to be fast enough, because so that it does not take much time. That is why dictionary is known as a fast access data type. Therefore, you store such kind of data which will be frequently used or retrieved or modified. Okay, so how to create a dictionary? Let's take an example here. Suppose you want to name your variable dictionary that contains the dictionary as dict1, and what do? You want to, sorry, you want to start the dictionary with a opening curly brace, and you want to end it with a closing curly brace. Okay, so the first key value pair that you want to assign to it, the key is fruit, and see how it has been enclosed in single quotes. Similarly, the value associated with the key is apple. Again, since it is a string, it is enclosed in quotation. You can use single quotes or double quotes, that's your choice. Now the second key value pair is climate colon cold. The third key value pair is price colon kg, and this is your entire dictionary. So what are you trying to tell with the dictionary? That there is a fruit called apple which has the current price in kgs as 120 rupees per kg or 120 kg per unit, and the climate that it is found in, or currently the climate that it is found in, is cold. So now when you try to print the dictionary, you'll get the entire dictionary in the same form that you have stored. Now, if you want to access a particular value that is associated with a specific key, that means you're not interested in getting to know the entire contents of the dictionary. You just want to know what is the value associated with the key which has the name price. So what you will do, you will say, I want to print the value from the dictionary which has the key named price. Okay, so what you do, you first write the print statement. Now in the round parenthesis of the print statement, you write the name of the dictionary whose key you want to access, and then in the rectangular brackets or the square brackets, you write down which key you want to access. Okay, so this will give you the value associated with that particular key of that particular dictionary that you have specified. So this is the dictionary data type. So that's all for today's lecture. I hope you found this lecture interesting and you learned quite many things. If you have any doubts, please feel free to reach out to us, and do not forget to like the video if you understood the concepts, and subscribe to the channel. Share this video with your friends, and in the upcoming videos we'll be continuing with the fundamentals of Python programming language for beginners, and we'll be going till the advanced level. So stay tuned till the next time. Until we meet next, mind your exam. Thank you so much for watching.